roll, or you can use these ready cut pieces which you can buy on the internet. 4 pipe cleaners, green, some pens and pencils, a glue stick, some sellotape or masking tape, some paper wrappers. It's nearly Easter, so it's a good time of year to collect these. Great if they're tin foil, we can scrunch those up into lovely shapes. Some recycled paper, maybe a page from a notebook. Bit of a carrier bag from a well-known supermarket, not doing any advertising. And a nice envelope that I've kept in my recycling box. It's worth just rustling through your recycling box looking for bits of things that you can recycle. So I've got all of these. I'm also going to use some of these tissue circles. So I've got some green for leaves and some flower colours. Again, you can buy these on the internet, or you can use the plastic and recycle it, as I said before. It's also good if you've got some raffia, some string, some old wool from a jumper that you might be throwing out, some ribbon, or maybe some net. This has been cut off the bottom of a dress. So anything really that you think you could make a flower petal from. First of all, move all of this out of the way. We're going to make the base of our crown. So we're going to do that by twisting 2 pieces together. If you're using wire off a roll, you don't have to do this. Now just cut it long enough to go around your head. And what we're going to do is make some loops in the end. And just pull that together and give it a twist. The same with this end. And then that just makes it nice and safe to wear. It also gives us a couple of loops in the end of the wire, which we'll then thread some ribbon or some raffia or some strips of cloth through later to use to tie at the back and size our crown. So there we have the beginnings of the crown. I'm going to put that to one side, and then I'm going to start to make some flowers. So I'm going to use one of my pieces of wire that I had before. I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to cut that because I'm going to make 2 flowers from one of these. Now if it's a little bit hard to cut, just keep going, because what you'll do is you'll mark that wire, you'll cut through the plastic, and then you'll be able to twist it. Watch, because these ends are a little bit sharp, and again I would recommend that you just, for safety's sake, fold that over and maybe pop on a little bit of tape. To cover that end. There we go. That'll stop it catching on any hair or clothing, and it'll stop you scratching your skin. If you've got some green tape or some masking tape, you might want to put that on and colour it in. That'll hide it, but we're going to cover that anyway, so don't worry too much if it's a little bit messy. So again, we're going to put a loop at this end, and again that just gives us a little bit of a safety feature, a little bit of a turn if we can. And then I'm just going to finish that off again with a little bit of sellotape, just to keep it safe and nice and secure. We don't want it pulling out. A lovely festival braid. Okay, so we've now got this piece which has got these two ends, nice and safe. Can't scratch you, can't hurt you. There we go. So I'm just going to pop that down. I'm going to begin to make my flower. So I'm going to get one of these that I showed you before. I quite like these ones because I've got a little bit of colour there in the centre and a little bit on the outside, and I'm just going to wrap that over, and as I do it I'm going to shape it into a little bit which reminds me of the inside of a flower. So there I go, squashing it up towards the top, pressing it down, shaping it round. Tinfoil is really good for this, and then just giving a little twirl, and you've got this lovely shape like that. Begins the shape of our flower. Now, if you're using the plastic, you can cut these and you just fold that over, cut it into a square, fold that square into four. You've got your two folded edges here and your folded round edge there, and then you can cut it however you like. I'm kind of making a bit of a Californian poppy here, so I've got it like that. It's almost like a heart shape when you look at it like that, but when I open it up, there we go, I've got a flower. Okay, so I could use that, that's my plastic, or I could use some of this tissue. And I've got a couple of these circles. These circles are great for making flowers with because they're already cut into a flower-like shape. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to pop some glue onto there, dot of glue onto there. Oops, glue's claggy. Good old Northumbrian word. So I'm going to throw that one away because this is a lifetime workshop. I'm going to take that claggy bit off the top of my glue and just give it a little clean. And then I'm going to go back in. That's better. I've got a fresh end on my glue. And I'm going to stick these together. Now I want them to be like flower petals, so I'm not being too tidy or careful about it really, because I want them to make a petally shape. So making it a bit random will actually give it a little bit of shape. Now all I'm going to do is use the end of one of my pointy bits. Now make sure you've got this on a table or on a book or something. And I'm just going to push that through and start off that hole in the centre. And then I'm going to get my other bit and I'm just going to pop that through. And as I go up, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the stalk. And that'll help me to catch those petals. So glue on the stalk, round there, and then I'm just going to squish that up and get it to start sticking to the stem. And I'm just going to work that with my fingers a little bit to make that happen. And then I'm going to cut into the flower. So I'm going to make some petally bits all around like that, and then I can loosen them up and separate them all. Now later on I'll spend a bit more time opening these all up and making these petals a little bit fluffier, but now I want to move on a bit so you'll be able to see at the end when I show you the actual finished item. So just going to open them up, fluff them, I think fluff is the word. And there we go. And there's one of my flowers. And I'm just going to get one of these little green pipe cleaners, and about 1/3 of the way along I'm going to wrap that around. And then that covers that little bit, but it also gives me these two sort of feelers like leaf, and I'm going to wrap those around a pencil to get some curls. And then the same on this side. I'm going to wrap those around and then pull the pencil out. Now I'm just going to give it a little pull just to give it a bit more shape, and then I'm going to sort of pull it down so it's a little bit more like the leaf of the flower stretching up to the light. Here we are with 3 flowers. So I'll just put those to one side. Just want to show you this one. I've made this little leaf here. This is just a little bit of recycled paper. And I've made that by cutting a rectangle, folding the rectangle in half, and just cutting round in a semicircle. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nature's full of lovely random accidents. So there we go, and that's just made my little leaf. And then I'm just going to attach that to the flower with a little bit of tape. You can do that with all of them. The next thing we need is our circlet that we made before. So remember, we've turned over the edges so they're not pointy, they don't catch you. And just to help with that again, I'm just going to cover that with a little bit of tape just on the edge. Make that nice and safe. It is going to be worn on the head, so you don't want it to be catching you. There we go, wrap that tape around there. And now I'm going to start with one of the flowers. I'm going to start with the biggest one, so I'm going to look for the biggest one. And I'm just going to start in the centre. And I am literally wrapping the wire around. Now what this does is it connects it, but it also adds another layer of wire to the crown, so it'll make it slightly more rigid. There we go. So that's the first one on in the very, very centre of the crown. So I'm going to go to the left with the next one, and I'm making it about maybe 4 or 5 centimetres away from the first one. And again, I'm going in with the wire and I'm just going to wrap it around. Sometimes it's spinning a little bit there, sometimes it's a bit difficult at first, but then you can wrap that in and then just tuck the wire around. So we've got 2 flowers on, and then I'm going for the next one. Again, about 4 to 5 centimetres apart from there, and I'm just wrapping it around, and it just starts making itself bound together and a little bit stronger. The nice thing about it being wire is that you can then play with that later on and get those flowers exactly where you want them to stand. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just go down this wire a little bit with one of the remaining pipe cleaners, and I'm just going to wrap it round, give it a little bit of softness on the hair, and the same on the other side. Now what I've done here is I've just turned over the edge, and again we don't want any wire poking any eyes, so the same with all of these. I've turned that edge over and tucked that wire in, wrapped it round itself, so the lovely felty bits on the pipe cleaners are sticking up rather than the wire. And the same with this one. I'm just going to go around and wrap that round so it coats that. When I get to the end, I'm just going to wrap it so it covers the sellotape that I've put on, and it just gives us a nice little finish on there. Just covers up that sellotape. This one needs to come slightly further down to do that. So wrapping it round and covering that little bit of sellotape at the end there with your pipe cleaner. just finishes it off a little bit. You can still see a little bit poking out, but you can pull it along with your nail or your scissor edge and just get that covered. Okay, so the next thing to do, you're probably thinking, oh, well, that looks a bit messy here and a bit messy here, but we're going to start adding some things in. So I mentioned before some net. Netting's nice because netting holds its own shape, so you can just, I mean, this is a bit raggy, this netting, but again, that's fine. We're doing natural forms, so we don't want everything to be straight lines. It's nice to have a little bit of variation. So I've cut that into 2 pieces, and I'm just going to go wherever I think there's a gap that I want to fill. I'm just going to tie that in. So I've got, first of all, done one side. Now I'm going to do the other side. And you might want to make it symmetrical. You might not. Depends how you feel. It's up to you. It's your design. You can choose your colours and whatever you want to add in. It's a little bit more net. So I'm cutting it. I'm slightly cutting it with a point across, so that I don't get a straight edge and that I do get some pointy edges. So I'm just going in and I'm just covering up any bits of wire, and it's sort of doing 2 jobs because it's covering up the wire. It's being decorative and it's also binding it all together, covering up any edges, any bits that I think need some work. So 4 bits in there. I think I might need a little bit more, so I'm going to do 2 more of those bits in the same way that I did them before. Cut it together. Now this, I'm using net, but this could be ribbon, it could be raffia. I'm going to add a little bit of raffia in as well because I really like raffia. It's a nice natural material. This could be bits of tissue if you wanted it to be. It could be plastic bags. There we go. Just organise that a little bit so it sticks up the way I want it. Now I'm just going to wrap a little bit of that wire around there because I want that to stick up a little bit more randomly. And it's starting to take shape, it's starting to come together. You can see the flowers there, you can see the leaves are in. I'm going to put a few more of those leaves in at the finish, but I just want to carry on filling in some of these gaps first of all. So I'm going to put some more raffia in there, and I'm not really bothered about measuring it. I'm just looking at what I think will look nice. And I'm just going to keep tying in some little strands of it. Again, deciding where the gaps are. Just going round and round. I think I'll put some in there underneath that blue flower so that it sticks out from behind it. Just adding some interest. There's a little bit there, a bit of bare wire there, so I'm going to add a couple of strands in there, I think, just to make sure that gap's nice and filled. There we go. Okay, if I think it's a bit long, I can trim it all later. I'll do that at the very end. So for now, I'm not too worried about that. Okay. A little bit more raffia in there. In the middle. And just enjoy the materials. There's no rush to get it finished. The good thing about being recorded is you can go back. If it feels like I've gone too quickly for you, you can always rewind the video to the bit that you want to have a good look at. I'm just going to put a little bit more in there as well. I still feel like there's a little bit of a gap there. there we go. So I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to start thinking about trimming it a little bit. I'm just going to trim these off just a touch, because even though it's great to be creative and free with these things, it's also good to think about how things fit together and what the lengths of certain things might be. So it might be good to just do a little bit of trimming. I'm going to add in a couple more of those leaves. So I'll have a couple of those in here. Just sticking those in. And then what I'm going to do next is concentrate on this part here, which is the two ends, the two loops. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put two long bits of raffia in there. Now you could do this with some nice ribbon or some lace or some different coloured ribbons. I'll show you another crown in a minute that I made with some different materials. But for this one, I'm going to use the raffia because I've quite enjoyed having the natural raffia material here. And I've sort of kept this a nice soft coloured crown. So I'm literally tying onto there some raffia. And the same at this end. Now I might trim that a bit because that is a little bit too long. And I'm putting that in there. Now what this allows is for you to fit your crown so it's a perfect fit. And it can just look nice trailing down the back as well. You might want to add some beads. I'm trying to keep it really simple today because I want it to be achievable. I don't want to do something that needs lots and lots of different materials. I want this to be something that you can do out of your recycling bin. Maybe use some old coat hangers for the wire, or some things that you've got lying around that you can cut up instead of ribbons. And again, the tissue, you know, I showed you that technique before about using the bags. Now I'm just splitting the raffia a little bit here just to make it nice and fine. And just once it's tied on, rather than tying on lots of pieces, I've tied on one piece and then I've split it into lots of pieces. And so I'm quite liking that, like that. So I've got my bits down the back. And then all you do is when you put this on, you tie those round the back of your head in a bow. Let the long bits trail down the back. It's very rustic, this one, I think. And then that means that you can alter the fit. So if it's a little bit tight, you can loosen this off a little bit and let it out. Okay. So there we go. There is our flower crown. Now I shall try that on for you later on. I'm just going to come back to another design. I told you that I had done a slightly different design. This one is made with obviously different colours. Same thing, it's made with the tissue. I've shaped the leaves a little bit more on this one so they've got a bit more of a petal shape, but it's made in the same way. Tinfoil in the centre. And what I've added in is some curls, some parcel ribbon curls. I've put some of the raffia in because I love raffia. It's a lovely, renewable, sustainable material. And then I've also put some more curled ribbon in between, just in the same way that I did with the raffia and the net on the other one. And then on the ends of this one, I've used one blue ribbon and one orange ribbon, so that when you tie it on, you've got the two different colours going down the back. Now again, if you've got some nice other kinds of ribbon lying around, you can use those, but you can use anything that can tie. and that can be decorative. It's your design, so you can just modify those. So I've made a little, so it's quite nice when you tie them together because you get a bit of crossover of the colours. And then you've got this little curl at the back now. You can just curl that a little bit more by drawing it through. Closed pair of scissors, thumb on there. Again, I've spent thousands of hours at festivals curling ribbons for people and showing people how to do that. And there we go. So 2 different models of the crown. Now you could carry on all the way around and you could make that into a Easter decoration if you wanted to. Quite nice, with a bit more raffia on and some eggs in the middle. That's our crowns. So there we go. I hope you like them. Enjoy making them, that's the main thing. A little bit of Easter magic and festival colour, getting us all ready for the festival season. Be well, enjoy yourselves, take care.